Hello! Alright, so the purpose of this video is to show you how to do long division and synthetic division of polynomials. Okay, let's first start off with something simple. Hopefully something that you've learned in elementary school. Okay, so let's start off with 277 and we're going to divide this by 12. Okay, so first we need to just kind of figure out, well, how many times does 12 go into 27? So I see, well, 12 goes to 27 two times, so 12 times 2 is going to be 24. When we subtract, then we get 37. Next, we have to figure out, well, how many times 12 goes into 37? And that would be 3 times. So then we do 12 times 3, and that's 36. We subtract, and we get 1. So if we were to actually do the long division of this, this would be 23 remainder 1. So in other words, what we have is if we do 277 and we divide this by 12, this is the same thing as 23 plus, and we have the remainder, which is going to be 1 divided by 12. Okay, so just as a recap, maybe somebody forgot, this right here is called the quotient. Okay, this is called the quotient. This number on top here is called the remainder. Okay, and the bottom number, this one is called the divisor. Okay, so divisor, and then we have remainder and quotient. Okay, so hopefully that serves as a nice little review. Now we're going to take it up a notch. Let's see how this relates to doing long division of polynomials. Okay, so let's say I give you something that looks like this: 4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x plus 1, and I'm dividing that by x plus 2. Okay, so it is the same idea, something that you may have learned in elementary school, and we're going to apply it to polynomials. Okay, 4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x plus 1, and we're going to divide this by x plus 2. Okay, so what we first need to do is we need to consider this and this. Okay, so if we divide 4x cubed divided by x, so this is going to be 4x squared. If you cannot see it, just write out 4 times x times x times x divided by x, cancel, and then you get 4x squared. Okay, so that's one way you can think about it if you're having a hard time visualizing. Okay, so what this means is 4x squared is going to be put on top here. Okay, next what we need to do is we need to multiply 4x squared by x plus 2. So if I do that really fast, so this is going to be, if we use distributive property, this is 4x cubed plus 8x squared. Okay, so now this is going to get placed underneath here. Okay, so just showing you again, this is 4x cubed plus 8x squared. Okay, next, what we need to do next is, like I told you in this part, we have to subtract. So when we subtract, we have to put parentheses, and that means we have to distribute this minus sign. Okay, so when we distribute that minus sign, what's going to happen is this cancels, and then we're left with 3 minus 8x squared. 3x squared minus 8x squared is going to be negative 5x squared. We're going to bring this down, and we have a plus 2x. Okay, next we're going to consider again now this and this here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that really fast. Negative 5x squared divided by x. Do that correctly, that should be negative 5x. If you don't believe me, write it out, find what cancels, and you should get something like that. However you want to do it, it's entirely up to you. Okay, so what we have is this is going to be negative 5x. Then when we come down here, we need to multiply negative 5x times x squared, x plus 2. So when we distribute, it should be negative 5x squared minus 10x. Okay, so when we go ahead and do that, that's going to be placed down here. So we get negative 5x squared, and we get a minus 10x. Okay, so what we're doing is we need to subtract this and put parentheses. We're distributing the minus sign here. When we distribute that minus sign, this turns a plus, so this doesn't cancel. And we get 2 plus 2x plus 10x. It's going to be a positive 12x. We're going to bring this down, and then we have a plus 1. Okay, now we need to look at this term and this term. Okay, so we have 12x divided by x, and that's 12, right? The x's will just cancel out, so we're left with 12. So we have a positive 12 here. Okay, next what we need to do is we're doing 12 times x plus 2. When we distribute, it's 12x plus 24. Okay, so that's what goes here. Okay, so do that correctly, it's going to be 12x plus 24. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract this, put parentheses. When we subtract, this should cancel, and then we have to distribute that minus sign here. So 1 minus 24 will get us to negative 23. Okay, so what this implies is that we can now write our quotient. Okay, so our quotient is going to be 4x squared minus 5x plus 12. So just so I can just put everything in colors here. So this is our quotient. Okay, then we're adding our remainder. So this is our remainder, so negative 23, right? So this is called our remainder. Okay, and then we're going to divide that by our divisor. And our divisor, which you can see there, is going to be x plus 2. Okay, so you could leave it in this form if you want. Yeah, and that's totally fine. Okay, and this is how you do the long division of this. You could even write it as you could put the negative in front. You could, if you wanted to make things nicer, you could write it like this: minus 23 divided by x plus 2, and that's totally fine as well. It is entirely up to you how you'd want to do it. But the main thing is, when you're dividing, I want you to try get used to writing it in this form. So quotient plus remainder, and I somehow forgot to write this. So quotient plus remainder divided by the divisor. Okay? All right. So I'm going to show you another example really soon, and I'll see you later. Goodbye. Hello. All right, time to show you a second example. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So let's say I give you something like this. So x cubed minus 64, and we divide this by x minus 4. Okay, so as you can see here, this actually jumps. We go from something from the third degree, and we go all the way to a constant. Okay, so anytime we run into a situation like this, we need to put leading zeros in front of certain terms. Whatever is 1 degree less of like the cube. Let me just go ahead and just show you what I mean by that. But anyway, so what we have is if we start off with x cubed, then next would be 0x squared. So the next term would be 1 degree less. And then we have 0x raised to the first, or in other words, it's a 0x. And we're going to subtract 64. Okay, we're going to divide this by x minus 4. Okay, so we'll do this the same way that we did the other problem. So we look at our first terms here. So we got to do x cubed divided by x, and that's x squared. If you don't believe me, write it out. Something like this. Cancel out, you get x squared. Okay, so what we have is we have x squared here, And then what we need to do is we multiply. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 4 is going to be a minus 4x squared. Okay? Next, what we need to do is we put parentheses and we have to subtract. So when we distribute this, this is going to cancel and we get 0x squared plus 4x squared. So when we do this, we get 4x squared. We bring this down and we have plus 0x. Okay? So next, what we need to do is now we need to figure out, well, how many times does 4x squared go into x? Or in other words, just divide it. So we have 4 times, so this is going to be 4x. If you don't believe me, this is 4 times x divided by x. Cancel, and you get 4x. Okay? So what we have, as you can see here, is we have a positive 4x. So when we multiply this, we get positive 4x squared, and we get a negative 16x. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to put parentheses and we subtract. When we distribute this here, this is going to cancel, and we're left with 0x plus 16x, and that's going to be a positive 16x. And we're going to bring this down, so we get 16x minus 64. Okay, so next what I see here is what we need to figure out. We need to look at these terms. Okay, so we get 16x divided by x, cancel this out, and then we get 16. Okay, so as you can see, this is 16, so this is going to be positive 16, and we need to multiply this. So 16 times x is going to be 16x. 16 times negative 4 is going to be negative 64. Then we're going to put parentheses and subtract. So when we do this here, this cancels out, and this cancels out, and we're left with 0. Okay? So let's say we were to write this in the form quotient, right? So quotient plus remainder divided by divisor. So something like this, right? So what we would do is first we would put our quotient. So x squared plus 4x plus 16. Our remainder is 0, and our divisor. So we get x minus 4. So as you can see here, well, anything divided by, so 0 divided by any number is going to be 0. So this is not even there. So this would be our final answer when we divide it through. So x cubed minus 64 divided by x minus 4. So that is going to be x squared plus 4x plus 16. Okay? Right. So I'm going to go ahead and show you another example. Okay? So let's say I give you something like this. Okay, so let's say I give you something like 5x cubed minus 3x squared minus 6, and we divide that by x minus 1. Okay, so if I give you something like this now, as you can see, we got to look very carefully at our terms. So as you can see, we're missing an x term. So what that means is when we go ahead and write this, we have 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 0x minus 6, and we divide this by x minus 1. Okay, so we look at our first terms here. So we got to do 5x cubed divided by x, and that's 5x squared. So 5x squared comes up here. Multiply this through, we get 5x cubed, and we're going to subtract 5x squared. So parentheses and subtract when we distribute here. So as you can see, this will cancel, and we get negative 3x squared plus 5x squared. So we get a positive 2x squared plus 0x. Okay, next what I see is we need to do 2x squared divided by x. So if we do 2x squared divided by x, that's 2x. So we get positive 2x here. And then what we need to do is we get 2x squared, and we're going to subtract 2x. Put minus sign here, cancels, and we get 0x plus 2x, and that's going to be 2x minus 6. Okay, so next what I see here is, again, now we need to look at this term and this term. So we get 2x divided by x, and that's 2. So this means 2 comes up here, and we need to multiply this through. So this is 2x minus 2. Okay, put parentheses, and we need to subtract. If we distribute, this cancels with negative 6 plus 2, and that's going to be negative 4. So that's how we're left with. So if we had to write this in the form quotient, so we have a quotient here, 5x squared plus 2x plus 2, plus the remainder. The remainder is negative 4, and this is our divisor. So divisor is going to be x minus 1. So we could write it in this form, or in other words, if you guys want to just get rid of this here, the positive and negative, you could write it as 5x squared plus 2x plus 2 minus 4 divided by x minus 1. However you want to do it. If you want to do it this way, that's fine. Or if you want to do it this way, that is totally fine too. Okay? So, these are 3 problems that show you how to do long division. Okay? Alright, so let me know if you have any questions on this. Okay? Bye. Hello! Alright, so the purpose of this video is to now show you a little shortcut. So I can see that some of you might have a little bit of trouble trying to do the long division. Okay, so some of you are having a little bit of trouble doing the long division. Some of you might be thinking, well, is there a shorter way? And there actually is a shorter way. You just gotta remember some rules though. Okay, so this little shortcut is this thing called synthetic division. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use synthetic division to divide by anything of this form x minus a. So all of these divisors here, as you can see, they can be written in the form x minus a. So let's start off by doing that. So let's start off with this first example. So if we have this first example, what our goal is we're going to try to get all the answers that we have here by using this little shortcut method. Okay, so if we have x plus 2, that's our divisor, this is the same thing as x minus negative 2. So in other words, what we have here is this is a, and this is a. So the minus sign is important. See, the minus sign is important here because that's how we need to manipulate this. So in other words, when we go ahead and actually manipulate this, we get a equals negative 2. Okay, now we need to perform the synthetic division. So when we do the synthetic division on this, a goes here, and then any coefficients, any leading coefficients that we have in front of these terms that you see here, this is the leading coefficient. This one, this one, this one, and this one is what goes in the blanks. So if I put like 4 blanks here, this represents 4x cubed, this represents 3x squared, this represents 2x, and this represents 1. Okay? So anyway, let's go ahead and do that. So this is going to be a 4, 3, 2, and 1. Again, all we're doing is we're using the leading coefficients in front of the terms. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, since we have a there, we identified a already, and that is negative 2. Okay, now let's go ahead and apply the synthetic division on this. So, pay attention very closely to the arrows. Okay, so the first step in synthetic division is you're going to drop this number down. You're going to drop this 4 down. 4 goes here. Next step that you're going to do is you need to multiply this negative 2 by this 4. So we get negative 2 times 4, which is going to be negative 8. Now we add. So 3 minus 8 gets you negative 5. Now we need to multiply this number by that number, and that should get us 10. So we get 2 plus 10, and that's 12. Next, we're going to take this value, multiply these two values, multiply them together, negative 2 times 12, and that's going to be a negative 24. So 1 plus a negative 24 is going to get negative 23. Now, let's look at this little shortcut method. As you can see here, so we started off with, this is 4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay? What we have here, as you can see, this is this coefficient, this is this coefficient, this is this coefficient, and this thing in the box here is our remainder. Okay? So, just kind of follows that little format. So, as you can see here, so this would be 4x squared. This is 5x. And this is plus 12. Okay? So, when we go ahead and write this out, we can write our quotient as 4x squared minus 5x plus 12, and then our remainder, so we're going to add negative 23, and anytime we have a remainder, we just have to make sure that we use the divisor that we started off with. So we use the divisor of x plus 2. And as you can see here, this expression is the same as that one. So yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Let's try the second example. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase some of the things here and start all the way back at the beginning. Okay, so we're going to use synthetic division. So instead, what we're going to use is we're going to use x minus 4. Well, would you look at that? So as you can see here, that's a right there. We don't need to do any manipulating like with the addition symbol there. So a is 4. Okay, so what we're going to do is when we set up a synthetic division on this, like I told you earlier, so this a is going to come here, and then whatever leading coefficients we have in front of here, as you can see, so would represent the synthetic division. So like I mentioned earlier, recall when we did long division for this. When we did long division, we had to put little placeholders, the leading coefficients, the leading zeros, for what you cannot see. So for example, this is x cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 64. So what this follows as is if we were to go ahead and put these leading coefficients that you see here, this is going to go up here. So this is 1, 0, 0, negative 64. A is 4. So 4 goes right there. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the synthetic division. So, like I showed you earlier, so 1 comes down. Then we need to multiply 4 times 1. And that is, and that's 4. So 0 plus 4 is going to be 4. Then we need to multiply this one. So 4 times 4 is going to be 16. So 0 plus 16 is going to be 16. And we need to multiply this here. So we get 4 times 16. And it's going to be positive 64. Negative 64 plus 64 is going to be 0. And would you look at that? Isn't that so cool? So these are our leading coefficients. Here, here, here. So when we go ahead and write this, like we said, we start off with 1x cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 64. So when we go ahead and do this little shortcut rule, this is x squared plus 4x plus 16. This in the box here is our remainder, so this is 0, divided by our divisor, x minus 4. So in other words, we don't even need to write that. And as you can see, this matches exactly what we have there. So yeah, that is how you would use synthetic division if you wanted to do something like that. Okay? So now I'm going to do the last problem, just so you guys can kind of see that little pattern. Okay, so what we have here is we have something like this. Okay, so we have 5x cubed minus 3x squared minus 6 and divided by x minus 1. So look at this. Isn't this awesome? This is already in this form. So x minus 1 here. So we can identify a right off the bat. A is 1, right? Boom, boom. A is 1. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to apply that synthetic division. So again, a is a value that goes here, and then any leading coefficients that you see. So we don't have an x term here. So when we write this out, this is 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 0x minus 6. So you can see we don't have an x term. So when we write this, this is 5, negative 3, 0, and negative 6. Okay, So what we need to put in the box is going to be 1. Okay? So let's go ahead and perform the synthetic division on this. So as we drop the 5, we need to then multiply. So we need to do 1 times 5, and that should get us 5. So negative 3 plus 5 is going to get 2. And we need to multiply these here. So we get 1 times 2, and that's going to be 2. 0 plus 2 is going to be 2. Multiply these here. 1 times 2, and that's going to be 2. And then we get negative 6 plus 2, and that's going to be a negative 4. And would you look at that? As you can see here, we have a 5 here, we have a 5 here, we have a 2 here, we have a 2 here, and we have a 2 here, and we have a 2 here. So this is our little shortcut. So like I showed you earlier, if we start off with 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 0x minus 6, this breaks down. If we were to divide it through, this becomes 5x squared plus 2x plus 2. So when we go ahead and write this out, this means when we write out our quotient, it's going to look something like this. This is our remainder. So this is going to be up there. And we start off with a divisor, x minus 1. And as you can see, look at that. We got the exact same thing here as we did there. All right. Okay, so I'm going to show you one more example. Let me know if you have any questions on this. I'll see you soon. Okay, bye. Hello. Alright, so the purpose of this video is to kind of show you first how to do this by long division, and then I'll show you again by synthetic division. Okay, so if we do something like this, let's just go ahead and start off. So we have x raised to the 4th plus 5x cubed minus x squared minus 17x plus 12, and then we're going to divide this by x minus 1. Okay, so interesting thing is, as you can see here, there's no like leading zeros we had to add to any of these here, because we have a 4th power, 3rd power, 2nd power, 1st power, and then a constant. So we didn't need to add any leading zeros anywhere. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So x raised to the 4th divided by x, and that's going to be x cubed. So then we multiply this now. We get x raised to the 4th, and we have a negative x cubed. So if we were to subtract this and distribute, as you can see here, this cancels. We have 5x squared plus x cubed, and it's going to be 6x cubed minus x squared. So now what we have is we have 6x cubed divided by x, and that's going to be a positive 6x squared. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we need to multiply this by this. So 6x squared times x is going to be 6x cubed. 6x squared times negative 1 is going to be negative 6x squared. Subtract, and then we need to put parentheses, so this cancels. So we have a negative 1x squared plus 6x squared, so that's going to be 5x squared minus 17x. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to take 5x squared divided by x, and that's going to be positive 5x. So multiply that through. So this is positive 5x squared, subtract 5x, subtract here, so this cancels, and we get negative 17x plus 5x, and it's going to be negative 12x, and then we need to go ahead and bring this all the way down, so we have a positive 12. Okay, so now we need to figure out, well, negative 12x divided by x, well, that's going to be negative 12 from what I see. So negative 12 times x is going to be negative 12x. And then we have negative 1 times 12 is going to be positive 12. So we need to subtract this. And when we distribute here, then this becomes positive. That's going to be negative. And what we have is we get a lovely 0. Okay? So when we go ahead and divide this through, this means our final result is going to look something like this. So x cubed plus 6x squared plus 5x minus 12 is our quotient. Then we have our remainder here, and we're dividing it by our divisor. But as you see here, 0 divided by any number is 0. So realistically, since that is not there, this is our answer. Okay? So let me now show you how you can do it instead of, so this right here, we use long division. Okay, let's say now we change this up and we use synthetic division. So starting all the way from the beginning, and let's go ahead and synthetic divide this guy. Okay, so let's say now we used synthetic division. Okay, so same idea like I showed you earlier, right? So what you want to do is you want to just put there's no leading zeros you got to add, so you're just considering all the coefficients that are in front, right? So if we write this is going to be a 1, we have a 5, we have a -1, we have a -17, and then we have a 12. Okay, recall that when we go ahead and put this here, as you can see, so what we have is we have x minus a, right? If we write x minus 1, well, a is obviously 1, so a is 1. So what that means is 1 is a number, the lucky number, that goes here. Okay. So now we're going to go and synthetic divide this. So when we do this, as you can see here, so what this becomes 1. Okay? Actually, I'll leave that there. So this comes down, becomes a 1. Then we need to multiply this number by this number. So 1 times 1 is going to be 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. Then we need to multiply this number and that number together. So 1 times 6 is going to be 6. -1 plus 6 is going to be 5. Then we need to multiply this number and that number together. So we have 1 times 5, and it's going to be 5. -17 plus 5 is going to be -12. Then we need to multiply this number and this number together. So we get 1 times -12, and we get a lovely -12. And 12 plus a -12 is going to be 0. So what that means is if we were to synthetic divide this thing, and we had to write our answer, another way that we can write this, so now we have to kind of consider, we started off with x raised to the 4th power. So when we have our quotient here, this is 1 degree less. So this is 1x cubed, or in other words, this is x cubed plus 6x squared plus 5x minus 12, plus our remainder is 0, and we used this divisor earlier, so dividing by x minus 1. And like we said earlier, this cancels. This 0 divided by any number is 0. And would you look at that? So as you can see here, we get the exact same thing. So yeah, all matter of preference, what you decide to do. Okay? All right. Cool. Next, what I'm going to show you is a special case. Okay? I'll see you soon. Bye. Hello. All right. So I'm going to go over a special case. Okay, so let's say you have a divisor that's a polynomial greater than the degree of 1. So for example, so in this case, let's say you have something like x squared plus 8. So you see here, something like this, rather than something like x minus 4 or x plus 4 or x minus 2 or x plus 10 or something. So you have something with a degree greater than 1. So something like this, or even like x cubed minus 2x plus 10. This is a case where you can't use synthetic division shortcut. And unfortunately, you're going to have to long divide in order to do this. So I'm just going to do one example, and we'll use this one here. So let's see if we can do this. So again, this is a case where, what if, so of course, if you have something like x minus 4, if we have x plus 10, if you have something like x minus 20, go ahead, use synthetic division. You're totally fine. This, as long if you see the degree here is going to be greater than 1, so this is a case where we cannot use that shortcut. But anyway, let's try and do that. So let's say I give you something like that. So 6x raised to the fourth plus x cubed minus 9x plus 13, and we divide this by x squared plus 8. Okay, so when we do this one, so again, as you can see here, we don't have an x squared term. So since we don't have an x squared term, we need to put a 0 there. So this is going to be 6x raised to the fourth plus x cubed plus 0x squared minus 9x plus 13. Then we're going to divide this by x squared plus 8. Okay, first, let's start off with this. Okay, so what I see is 6x raised to the fourth divided by x squared. Do that correctly, that's 6x squared. So we have 6x squared here. Then we multiply this through. So we have 6x squared times x squared, that's 6x raised to the fourth. Then we get 6x squared times 8. Then that's going to be a positive 48x squared. So when we put parentheses here and distribute, right, so this is going to cancel. So we have 0x squared minus 48x squared. So we have a negative 48x squared. And then what interesting here is this one has come down as well as this one. Okay, because something interesting happened here. So we have x cubed and we have a minus 9x. Okay, so next what we need to do is we need to compare these. Okay, so we have x cubed divided by x squared, and that's going to be x. So we have positive x here. And then when we multiply this through, so we get x cubed and we get positive 8x. So we subtract now, and when we distribute, as you can see here, now this cancels, and now we get negative 48x squared. And then when we try to do this, this is going to be negative 17x. Then we're going to bring this down, and we have a positive 13. Okay, now we need to compare these. So we have negative 48x squared divided by x squared, and that's going to be negative 48. So we have a negative 48 right here, and then we need to go ahead and multiply that. So negative 48x squared, and then we have negative 48 times 8. Let's just do that real fast. So then we get something like 384. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 384, and then we need to put parentheses, so something like that. Okay, so when we distribute, this will cancel, as you can see. So we get negative 17x, because this will drop down. Nothing touched that. And then we get 13 plus 384, and that's going to be a positive 397. Okay, so as you can see here, this degree is less than this degree here. So we cannot go any further. This right here would be our remainder. Okay, so when we go ahead and write this thing, this is 6x squared plus x minus 48 plus negative 17x plus 397 divided by x squared plus 8. You just leave it like that, and that's totally fine. So something along those lines. So yeah, that would be a slightly harder case if you're wondering, but that is basically how you would do that. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions on anything that I went over. Okay, bye.